So I watched every Exorcist movie, even the new one, and this one. Twice. Seriously, why did they make the prequel twice? More on that later. Of course, spoiler warning for all of these movies, but they're segmented, so if you haven't seen any of them, just skip that segment. I do a lot of these kind of videos, so subscribe. And look at the graph. Subscribe. Anyway, into the video. I've said it for a bunch of other horror movie franchises, and I'll say it again. The Exorcist, the original, is the best one in the franchise. There's some boring parts, but the good parts really hold the movie on their back. Like every single time you're in the same room as possessed Regan, it's just very tense, very brutal, and has some of the best horror movie scary possession scenes of all time. It has some downsides though. Like I said, there's some slow parts and you could probably shave off 20-30 minutes of the movie and it would be beneficial. Also, the ending is really abrupt. It just kind of ends. And it's not the only time that it's abrupt. Also, Father Merrin dies pretty abruptly. I didn't expect him to die, and he did. Kind of everybody died except Regan. But let's talk about some of my favorite scenes. The first one of my favorite scenes is actually near the beginning when they're in this African archaeological dig. Regan comes downstairs while her mom is having a party and then pisses her pants right there. I mean, imagine sitting there at that party, you know, you're just like drinking some schnapps with the boys, you know, doing a little jig, and this little girl comes down. What did she just say? Bro, she pissing? The overall contrast that the movie has, you have these wholesome scenes with Regan and her mom just being a normal little girl in a family. This is definitely the best one in the series. But there's another one that's comparable to it, and I can't speak for the newest one yet because I haven't seen it yet, but it's in the video. This is a natural sequel because it's a few years after the first one, so now we're following Regan as like a teenager instead of like a 12-year-old girl. And it's really interesting to see how she's actually become a pretty well-adjusted human. Following the events of the first one, you would think that if she is still haunted at all or possessed at all, you would think she would be just an absurd menace. She goes to these like weird, complex therapy sessions, and they bring up this hypnosis thing from this synchronizer machine. It was a really unique first impression. The ambiance of the beeping and bringing everybody down. I mean, it honestly was a little bit hypnotizing to the viewer, at least to me. Then they did it again and again, and each one of these scenes was like 10 minutes long. And it's like, damn, what is this so long for? Once again, we easily could have shaved 20-30 minutes off this movie and it would benefit greatly. The first one, at least in the boring parts, you have still something good to look forward to. You still have these possessed Regan scenes that are really, really brutal. But in this one, there's not really much to look forward to. In fact, the backstory of the locust god Pazuzu is pretty lame. I don't really care about it. And then they take this big journey all the way to Washington to the old house, and it's just, none of it feels like something that I enjoyed watching. I just felt like it was work to watch this movie. Special effects during these hypnotizing scenes are terrible. The layering over things, it just looked so corny and old, and I get that the movie is corny and old, but it just doesn't do well with what it has. I don't really know what I'm trying to say, but it looks bad. And I watch old movies. You know, it's not just like that it looks bad for an old movie, it just looks bad. I mean, the makeup, right? Like the characters, possessed characters, they look fine. I'm talking like the spooky, mystical effects with the fog, the layering, it just doesn't work. It didn't work. Even the climax felt lackluster. It just didn't really have any oomph. I mean, yeah, the swarm of locusts destroying the house was really over the top. It was a slow burn that the payoff just wasn't good enough. And the whole scene, the 20-30 minute travel back to that Washington house was so long that it just pulled me out of the movie. I just got bored before the climax even happened. I think the worst movie in the series. After the shit show that was The Exorcist II, my expectations dropped a lot. But The Exorcist III picked them right back up. This is the one that I was saying is comparable to the first one in terms of just horror and just being a good movie in general. The story was rather compelling, but honestly, the entire movie was carried by Brad Dourif's insane monologues. This seemingly random actor just pulled off such incredible monologues. I mean, it was reminiscent of Willem Dafoe's monologues in The Lighthouse, which is the best part of that movie as well. This character, the Gemini Killer, really just brought the whole movie together. You can never tell tell for sure if he was just an insane man or if he was actually possessed. And he was. The story itself was pretty compelling too. You have this weird mix of crime and horror thriller stuff, and it went pretty hard. It was a really strange mix, right? You have this detective that's just trying to connect the dots and not trying to just call out, oh, it's a ghost. It's a ghoul. Unfortunately, the ending was just this giant climactic burst of demon and ghosts and ghoul like pushing the guy up to the wall. And it was just too much, man. The best parts of this movie are just these long monologues. The best part of this movie, just the talking, was the best part of the movie, which is a complete 180 from the original, which the worst parts were the talking. I would say the first one's probably better in my eyes. I think I enjoyed the first one more, but this one was good. I mean, this one was way better than all the other ones in the franchise except the first one. Exorcist the Beginning and Dominion. These were really bad. I'm really pissed that I had to watch these movies twice. They made a prequel, which is okay. And the first one, when I watched it, I was like, okay, well, this is okay. It's kind of boring, it's kind of long, but I like the setting. I think the characters were done pretty well. But dude, why'd you make me watch it twice? If I watched it once, then okay, would have been all right. But why'd you make it a second time? So apparently what I heard was that there were like complications in making it, that it had a really bad reception, so then they just scrapped a bunch of stuff. And then when they tried to remake it, they got this new director, and he just wanted to scrap the whole thing and reshoot everything. So that's what they did. They recasted, they reshot, they did everything. But then they still released the first one, and then this one a year later. Why? Why would you do it? You did it so that we could decide which one we liked better. But I think what it did was just bring the whole movie experience down, man. I mean, I just watched a trash movie twice. I Am Perfection, head ass. What was that? So bad. It looked bad. All the effects in that movie were trash. I mean, the hyenas, dude. What? Why'd you have to CGI them in like so poorly? I just feel like the budget was so low for this movie, and it showed. The Beginning was much better, but Dominion was trash. But I think, to be fair, probably most people's opinion would just be like the better one is the one they watched first, because having to watch two of the same movie, you're not gonna enjoy the second one as much as you are the first, because you already know the storyline. And it wasn't the exact same, right? Like it was more about like the struggle that Father Merrin had. Just got back from the new movie, The Exorcist, The Believer, and it was okay. It was all right. Also, I just got back from filming the movie podcast on my friend's channel, Panel Persona, linked in the comments or the description somewhere there. If you want to watch a little bit more in depth on this movie in particular, watch that channel. Also, show some love over there. Subscribe to the boy. Come on, do it. This movie was all right. It was okay. I'd probably put it the third best. It's behind The Exorcist III, which is behind The Exorcist, the original. But let's start it off on a high note. Some of the good stuff from the movie. I enjoyed the premise, the setup of the two girls going into the woods to just have a little bit of fun. You know, the spiritual stuff, talking to the dead mom and all that. But then they go missing for 3 days. But they think it was only a couple hours when they get found and talked in the hospital. Thought that was interesting. Of course, it didn't take very long for them to show the possession and kind of go full possessed mode, which maybe they rushed a little bit into it. Of course, they had some of the legacy characters, you know, requel stuff, which this is definitely a requel. But I really liked the callbacks. I think they did a really good job at doing that a few times. They first started off with the dog fighting thing. I was actually like instantly impressed, and it kind of set my expectations a little higher for this movie. They also made Angela wet the bed, Reagan, you know. As for the exorcism itself, which honestly took the bulk of the movie, I think it took about half of the movie, it was okay. But only okay. I felt like it was kind of anticlimactic. I saw the twist coming a mile away where whoever you chose actually died. And fuck this guy. This character sucked. Now, as far as the effects go, the makeup, all that stuff, it was fine. I mean, that's the thing that I expected, right? But the acting, the body and the blood, that scene was so dumb, dude. I was laughing in the theaters. I was rolling. That's really all I have to say about this movie. I think I gave it a 2 out of 5 on my friend's channel. And I think that's maybe a little harsh, but it'd be too generous to give it a 3 out of 5. Their ranking system is 1 to 5. Rank them Exorcist 1, Exorcist 3, Exorcist the Believer, The Beginning, 2, Dominion, I guess, probably. I think all 3 of them at the bottom are not very good. They're honestly, they're bad. That's really it. That's all I got for the video. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel. Got a lot of these kind of videos coming out.